Hello everyone, how are we doing? Middle of the week, Wednesday, Celtic Way, morning briefing. All of that's irrelevant, guys. The big news, we've signed a left back. And it took no time at all. No time at all. We got it done quickly. We certainly didn't waste 3 or 4 transfer windows not signing a left back. He's in, Alex Valle, and we're delighted about it. Ryan, you're out and about as well. You're that excited you've gone out to what looks like a pub. Those drinks behind you.
It's just a bar area in the studio, yeah. Early start for me, obviously. No, I was doing some recording. You'll probably see me on certain episodes of things in the next couple of days. Won't give too much away, but I'm really looking forward to sharing it. And you'll see it all on my socials once it does come out. But yeah, Celtic Way is going, not worldwide, but citywide, I would say. Going up and about, which is great. You know, covering the game at the weekend or previewing the big game at the weekend. A game that doesn't seem to have been previewed that much at all. All the talk is on the Champions League and on Celtic's transfer business, but there's a small matter of a Glasgow derby on Sunday afternoon that's kind of, you know, just at the side at the moment. It's there, it's lingering, but it's not quite there yet. But once the draw is done tomorrow and the transfer business is all settled, then I think all eyes and all attention and focus will go into that game. But yeah, looking forward to it. It's a very busy week. Good start to the week. You know, Wednesday bring in Alex Valle and let's see what he can do.
Yeah, I was joking, of course, Joe, but it's nice to get a left back in. He looks like he could be a decent player as well. I know that's based off a few videos and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I saw the Levante stuff, and he looks like that kind of aggressive, kind of wing back style, really pushing that offensive high press that Rodgers loves. You know, I've not seen enough. You know, I do love watching a show reel like everyone else, but you know, it comes with qualifications that we really need to see him up close. But we will. You know, that's he is officially through the door. Celtic have put out their interview and their social media content, and yeah, it's exciting. I'm back on this podcast and no longer able to say there's plenty of time left because there's only a few days. It's going to be a busy few days, but it looks like things are happening. There was a while there where it looked like maybe it wouldn't, and it would be bluster, and the manager would continually look or sound quite frustrated in his analysis after games and pre-match briefings and stuff. But no, really exciting because Ryan says it's almost the derby on Sunday. I mean, it's important, but it's almost at the back of your mind. I don't know if that's a coping mechanism for me because I'm too nervous to think about it. But
I think there's a few reasons for it. The obvious ones, the transfer stuff, even the Champions League draw tomorrow for me is, it's not just for me, it's a big deal. I think generally finding out who we're going to play, especially in this new format with it being 8 teams rather than 3 different ones like previously. I think the first derby of the season as well, it's obviously a very big game, but you know, I think the derbies will probably get bigger as the season goes on, as they tend to, unless we run away with the league. And also, I just feel pretty relaxed about the game as well. Even away from all of the other stuff, I just think Celtic are in a great place on the pitch. And I'm not that concerned really about Rangers, and that's just me being brutally honest. I'm not saying that to wind up any Rangers fans watching or, you know, false bravado or anything like that. They're always games that whoever turns up in the day does the business, and we'll need to do that. But I feel very relaxed that we'll bring our top level on Sunday, and if we play at our top level, I don't think they deal with us. We can maybe chat a bit more about that later on. First of all, Brendan Rodgers on Alex Valle says, we're delighted to have landed Alex on this season-long loan as we continue to strengthen the squad for the season ahead. His footballing style will complement our attacking play as well as giving us more options in our backline. Spoke about Valle being brought up in a real high-quality footballing environment at La Masia. Said he's a player with some tremendous attributes. Played well for Levante last season and will be a quality addition to our squad. Alex Valle says, I'm very excited. It's a great opportunity to come to this historic club. They have given me a lot of confidence to come here, so I will try to do my best to return the confidence. I heard a lot about the fans and what we can expect in the stadium, so I'm just excited to see it in real life the manager gave me a lot of confidence to come here. He told me that he's watched some games in Barca and Levante, and he's been learning in the Barca academy, so he's looking forward to playing. Where do you think he's going to fit in, Ryan? He's not going to start on Sunday, I wouldn't have thought, but beyond Sunday, where does he fit in this season?
He'll definitely get games now that Celtic have got rotation in that left back area. It'll be very interesting to see how they rotate and what games Valle will play and what games Greg Taylor will play. Two really solid options as far as we know. We haven't seen too much of Valle, but you come from La Masia, you must have something about you. They've got a great conveyor belt of talent. Look at the track record, even for players that didn't make it at Barcelona. You know, they tend to go and ply their trade at other big clubs around the world. It's similar to Man City, similar to Leipzig, Salzburg, etc. Even if they don't make it at these clubs, it gives them a good springboard to play European football or elsewhere. I just hope that this is a level up. This signing a 20-year-old coming from Barcelona, you know, attacking the key words that Brendan Rodgers are using will help us attacking wise. I think that's maybe one of Greg Taylor's, not one of his weaknesses, but it's just I think he's good at going into the midfield. I'd like to see a defender go to the byline, much like Alistair Johnson, because I think Celtic only play with one inverted winger at this point in time. Johnson likes to get to the byline and get that cross into the box or get goals for himself, as we've seen on Sunday against St Mirren. It'd be good to have that on the left-hand side as well. And as Tony always says, horses for courses, you know, different players for different games and positions. And, you know, you can't have too much choice. Having two left-backs, you know, having two competent left-backs that are willing to fight for the jersey and play in both the Champions League and domestically, it's a pretty good position to be in. I think it's smart business. The talk is that there's a €3 million release clause. So, you know, Barca they're saving themselves as well. They're protecting their asset, but it's manageable. If he does well at Celtic, then I'd be looking at Celtic to do that in January or the summer to tie him down if he has made that acclimatisation. They've got Greg Taylor. Greg Taylor can be trusted. He's been one of Celtic's best players in the 4 games thus far this season. But it's good to have some competition there because you can't rest on your laurels in this team. You need to be continuing to do well. With his contractual situation as well, it's good to have another player in there. And then potentially, if the loan does go well, it's a realistic fee in the summer. So very happy with this move. Hopefully there's more to come.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Greg Taylor's best season, it was probably a couple of years ago, and that came when we'd just signed Alexandro Bernabe. So even though Bernabe didn't work out as a player, the feeling was, and you don't know for sure, but the feeling was that Bernabe arriving, you know, upped Greg Taylor's performance level. So maybe the same thing will happen here, but also I think Valle you would certainly hope would be far better than Bernabe proved to be. So what does his kind of introduction to the team look like, Joe? Is I don't think he'd start on Sunday at all. I think that Greg Taylor will start the game, but is he who you think Rodgers is looking at for the Champions League, or is he more of a we'll wait and see type player?
Yeah, I don't think he'll start on Sunday either. Although Alistair Johnson obviously was thrown in baptism of fire into that fixture on the other side of defence. Whenever he came into Celtic last year, I don't think the situation is the same in this instance. I think that the manager's spoken loads about wanting to have more rotation this year. Obviously, the Champions League, like you say, Ryan, it depends on how good the player is, doesn't it? I think that Brendan Rodgers speaks a lot about rotation, and under Brendan Rodgers' teams historically, we have rotated at times, but always, like any manager, it has a favourite starting 11. You think about when Moussa Dembele came into the team as an unproven young player. Lee Griffiths was definitely the best striker in the first team at the start of that season, and then Dembele announces himself in style in that fixture through an injury, right enough. But and then after that, Griffiths does get game time, but it's maybe after Europe at Hamilton and places like that more going to when they were still up on the artificial pitch. So yeah, it depends on the player, it depends on the occasion. And I think the sooner we see him, the better. It might not be this Sunday, but it'd be good to kind of feel him out, let him feel out the Scottish game as well. And yeah, I think the worst scenario for everybody, fans included, is that he sits on the bench and he's pushing Greg Taylor behind the scenes, because I think we want to see the player on the pitch, see what he's made of, and see what he can bring.
Number 11 as well, left back number 11. Not sure about that. I noticed the club have already been pushing the like the kind of VA 1-1E type stuff. It just makes me a bit sad, all that kind of stuff. But I guess the people out there maybe like that kind of thing. I don't know. Do either of you like that?
I have been doing the NK10 for Nicholas Kuhn and that. I do.
Dear.
I do quite like that. Try to be down with the kids. I like to think I still am one of them, but getting there. I just seen the video come up on my Twitter page there. He does look a lot like somebody else. He looks like Iago Aspas, that used to play for Celta Vigo. I think he's got the same sort of face and the same eyes. So he does look like a couple of people. If he can play anywhere near as good as Aspas, but maybe in the left back position, then I'll be pretty happy with that. But seems confident. English doesn't seem to be a problem for him as well, which is great. Good acclimatisation. And Brendan Rodgers speaks Spanish as well. He showed that in America with his interaction with Luis Palma. So he clearly still brushes up on his Spanish, which is great to see. There'll be no barriers whatsoever. But as I always say, it's a bit of a cliche now of what I say. And Brendan Rodgers said that the language of football is universal, so I'm sure he'll be fine on the pitch. Looking forward to seeing him. Ideally, you'd love to see him come on. If Celtic are a couple of goals up at the weekend against Rangers, what better way to announce yourself than coming on? I'd like that for quite a few of the new players, fingers crossed.
Yeah, I was going to say that. We're going to have a number of players potentially making their first appearance in a Celtic squad this Sunday if things go well. I'm trying to think back to last year. I think Luis Palma was on the bench. Nat Phillips wasn't, and who was another late signing? Maybe Bernardo wasn't either.
Bernardo wasn't. He signed after, I think. Did he not sign after the game, or maybe just before it? But he wasn't. He was just still travelling round a bit then.
Yeah.
So
it feels like a long time ago, doesn't it? That first game last year, it feels like a long time ago.
Because I was thinking this time a year ago, but in terms of where the fixtures were, this time last year was just after the St Johnstone game, the nothing each game. With Matt O'Reilly missing about 2 or 3 really, really high quality chances. He should have had a hat-trick in that game and he didn't score any. It was nothing each. And I remember the feeling outside the ground. There was annoyance that Celtic were getting by with some of their wins, but the performances weren't there. But that was really concerning on that day. I remember Tony was reassuring me, saying they'll be fine at Ibrox. This was when the defensive crisis happened, and then when Scales was drafted in. Look at that to now. Look at a year later. It's everything's rosier. At least on the pitch. Off the pitch, there's still work to do, but on the pitch at this moment in time, there just everybody seems to be in a harmonious mood.
Charlie asking who was the Uruguayan left back we had on loan from Milan, Diego Laxalt. No idea why you want to bring that up, Charlie. I thought we'd moved on from the bad memories of that season. Right, what else is happening? We mentioned other players. Mateusz Boguts, where are we with that, guys? You probably know better than me. Is there any update on
that? The latest that I heard that Celtic were in talks once again with the player. I heard that they're further down the line, or in terms of negotiations, are further down the line with Arne Engels, which is probably my preference at this moment in time. He would be your stereotypical Matt O'Reilly replacement. He can play defensive midfield, but he can also play attacking midfield too. Boguts, I think, would be used more for the goals element, the goals and assists providing. At 20 years old, Engels isn't the finished article. He can still develop on his game, but he will be expected to come in and instantly stake a claim in the first team. I'd expect him not to start against Rangers, but you're looking at that Falkirk game in the Premier Sports Cup. Look him to start that game. If he plays well, then he stays there for the duration of the season. But for Boguts, Brendan Rodgers has said he wants 2 midfielders to replace Matt O'Reilly. That would make sense. That would check out between those two, Engels and Boguts. The fact is, Anthony Joseph a couple of days ago was saying that Celtic are pushing to sign both of them. I think everybody would be absolutely delighted if both of them were to come through the door. Difficult to replace Matt O'Reilly, but that loss becomes a wee bit sweeter if you've got 2 players that can sort of take that load.
We're probably looking at deadline day, aren't we, for these to be confirmed if they're going to happen at this stage, Joe? Because we're at Wednesday morning, and I mean, if you take Valle for example, we kind of found out that was going to happen, I think, on Sunday night. And it's taken until Wednesday morning for it to happen. So obviously things can be expedited during the final few days of the window, but you'd think it will be deadline day for our next signing, and hopefully 3 of them.
Yeah, it's exciting, isn't it? I mean, it's trying to balance what the man has been saying in all his press conferences in the last few weeks, and what actually happens, and given that we offer opinion and we're journalists in the middle of things. Like, there's a story either way. If Celtic don't fulfil the manager's ambitions and bring players in, that becomes the story itself. So you're already starting to try to predict what's the next narrative. But the last 10 days have been really exciting, seeing links that seem tangible, seeing reports that talks are advanced and not just Twitter talk. And then of course Valle's through the door, as you say, 3 days after the first murmurs. And I suppose it was the same with Kasper Schmeichel. That kind of came out of nowhere, and then the next thing he's through the door at the other end of the window. I mean, yeah, I would have loved the business to have been done sooner, but if it gets done, is that a selfish thing? Is it that you want just to have yourself kind of calmed down and appeased earlier in the window? Of course, there is the practicalities of getting players in and assimilated with the team, but we're chasing seemingly top players for good money. So these guys are professionals. They're capable of stepping in and getting up to speed and getting to know their teammates on the fly or in the moment. So I don't have any worries about that. And I can't think of the last time that we had a transfer deadline day where, because as much as we would have loved Matt O'Reilly to stay, he's gone now. There's not the uncertainty of, are we going to lose our best player like Mr. Dembele in 2018 on deadline day? So to be entering deadline day with a kind of spring in your step almost, it feels a wee bit alien as a Celtic fan, but it's quite exciting as well.
Can I mention Kyogo? Are we over that for sure? The fact that, because you're still always just concerned.
I think Celtic have drawn a line under it now. I think now the deadline is passed for Kyogo to go. There's just too little time to replace him.
There's 25 million, Michael. There's 25 million.
I don't think they can afford that. They can afford to lose a player like Kyogo. I know it's 25 million, but they are financially rich as a club. And what the effects that would have on the pitch would be far worse than the positives. It would be far more cons than pros in losing Kyogo at this point in the window. The only real alternative that you would go for is Edward at this point. That's the only avenue that I could see them going down from that point, because, and to use a certain phrase, he knows the city, he knows the club. That could be one of the reasons why they go down that road. But I just can't see Kyogo leaving. And Kyogo and Hatate, the two of them staying. I think Kyogo started the season well. Unfortunate with his shoulder injury, but he's looked good off the ball and his distribution and all of that. And Hatate's, that last game, especially against St Mirren, was a masterclass, to be honest. And looking at the stats the other day on Monday afternoon when my article came out, he was top of the charts in basically every metric. He really did run the show. Helped alongside Bernardo and Callum McGregor. But he'll feel, and I hate to use that saying because it's cliche, but Hatate feels like a new signing this season because he looks fit, he looks fresh, he looks ready for what Brendan Rodgers wants him to do. It seems like he's understanding what Brendan Rodgers is asking of him. And yeah, that bodes well for the rest of the season.
It does. Anne was asking about, do we need a central defender? Yes, 100%. Anne, a striker. I'm fine with the striker situation. I think Brendan Rodgers is as well with Daizen Maeda as the third option. Listen, if the club have someone in mind, there's a younger player can come in, absolutely for that. I don't think that's going to happen at all. I think Rodgers has basically said we're fine for a striker. The only way we'll sign a striker, I think, is if Kyogo was to leave. And by the way, I don't think that will happen, but I just wanted to bring it up. Stephen saying no chance we're getting both, talking about Boguts and Engels. That seems to be a feeling, Joe, that I guess just as Celtic fans we're not used to having nice things in the transfer window, and if we're linked with two kind of quite exciting midfielders, both for nearly 10 million each of them, the feeling is we wouldn't get both, but Brendan Rodgers clearly wants to get both. Do you think both are going to come in? And we'll just link that to Scotland the Braves point, asking about predictions, Joe. So go for it. Engels, Trusty, Bogus, what do you think they're going to come in?
I probably agree with Scotland the Braves' comment there. If I had a preference, I think I would rather see a strong midfielder come in who can hit the ground running and can offer that Matt O'Reilly replacement per se. This boy Trusty looks decent as well. And that is the kind of left-sided central defender kind of vacancy, if you will, that I was keen personally, and I know a lot of Celtic fans were as well, to see come into the fold. And like Scales has been good this season. Do you know? And I always think that Scales he gives his all, and he's played for that jersey, and he's really started the season really well. Is he Champions League material? Different question entirely. That's still to be seen this season. But again, it goes back to that element of competition. If someone else is pushing Scales to be better, or if Scales is having to push that player if he loses his place, I'd love to see that. Listen, all three would be brilliant. All three and Edward would be even better for me, just to have all those options all over the pitch. That's very unlikely to happen. I think, it was the manager said about the kind of third striker option being Maida at the last press conference, didn't he? Addressed it saying he'd have loved a young player to have come through. That's obviously not been the case, and that Maida, if needed, can step up, as we saw at Celtic Park a few weeks ago. But yeah, for me, I think I would probably prefer Engels and Trusty or a left centre back in these next few days. And it seems like, as we say, things are on the road to happening. And it is unusual, especially at this point in the transfer window. But yeah, I'm excited.
What the consensus on Trusty seems to be that people aren't a fan of him generally. I'm genuinely asking everyone, like, is that based? Well, I assume it is based off something. You've not just for no reason decided Trusty isn't up to it. Have you seen Trusty play for Sheffield United? Was it? What have you? Let us know in the comments. What have you seen that you don't like in him? Do people just think that he's not going to be up to it? Ryan, what do you make of those three players? How many of them do you think we're going to get in?
Personally, I think all three will come in before
Really?
Friday. I just think with the way that Brendan Rodgers was talking post-match, I think he knows that things are in the offing. Engels, I think, will definitely be the case. If Celtic are putting up 9 million already, Augsburg know that they've got the money. It'd be a bit of a travesty if Celtic don't sign Engels at this point, if they've already offered up 9 million. Surely, if Augsburg are keen on that 10 million, then the difference between you can't leave that position vacant at the moment. Celtic have the money. They've just sold their player for a record transfer fee, 25, 26 million. 1 million won't hurt the bank too much, and it would hurt them more if they don't go and replace a player like Matt O'Reilly. There is so much upside with Engels, 20 years old, comes from good stock in the Club Brugge side. He was so close to making the Belgium Euros team. This is a guy that's on the up. Spend that bit of money, take that risk. You will make more money back on him. It seems pretty certain that will be the case. You speculate to accumulate. I just think with Boggets in particular, he solves quite a few problems because he can play attacking mid. But for LAFC, and I know it's a different level, but it's not that much of a changing level between the MLS and Scottish football. And some teams are better in the MLS than they are in Scottish football.
MLS league's better than Scottish Premiership.
So I don't really subscribe to the, not snobbery, but the looking down on MLS as a league that has improved in recent years. You only have to look at the best right back in the country, and Alistair Johnson was plying his trade in the MLS. He came in like a duck to water. But the thing is, he's versatile. Boggets is versatile. He can play an attacking mid. He can play as a false nine, but he can also play on the wings too. He can play on the left and right wing. Having a bit of a skeleton key player that is versatile and can play in all those positions is going to be so important with injuries. Celtic get injuries over the season. They will get injuries with the 4 competitions that they're playing in. Having a guy that can step in and be not a utility player, because I think that's quite condescending on the player, and use that for Hatate when that clearly wasn't the case. But having a guy that can play in 4 or 5 different positions and play them competently, you solve a lot of problems there. There was talk about Sloop earlier on in the month. Having a player like that in the attacking side of things can be just as good. I'd be very much up for that. I hope that they can get the 2 in. But if I was to choose one, if you were to hold me to one, it would be Engels, just for that, for the profile and the potential and the upside that you've got in the player. And the player seems really keen, by all accounts, to join Celtic too. So that's obviously a plus as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I think Engels is going to happen, just based off the things you read about, him wanting Champions League football. As you say, Augsburg are clearly open to selling him at the right price, and we have the money. So that's one that we have to get done. I think Trusty will probably come in as well. I'm intrigued by people's feelings towards Trusty.
Yeah, you asked me about Trusty as well. Sorry, I never answered about Trusty. You see, just because a player's had a bad season, and let's be honest, everybody at Sheffield United had a bad season. They were the worst defence, one of the worst, if not the worst defences in Premier League history. But just because he had a bad season doesn't make him a bad player. You know, it's still an incredible level that he was playing at. You only have to look at the season before when he was playing at Birmingham City. You know, you've got Birmingham fans that were desperate to have him back. He was linked with Rangers in that transfer window, and I heard about Trusty and how wonderful it was going to be north of the border when he was going to make that move to Rangers. So, you know, players don't become bad overnight. It's all about the perfect fit. He's a guy that's 25, 26 years old, coming into his prime. He knows Cameron Carter-Vickers, so that could work for both sides. Cameron Carter-Vickers, I think people forget this as well. He makes every single player that he plays alongside better in games. So I've got no doubts if he was to come into the squad. He comes from good stock. He also played in the MLS. I think it was for Colorado, I believe. But I've got no doubts that if he was to come in, he would do a job for Celtic. He's tall. He's quite pacey by all accounts. And I think he would do a job for Celtic. Whether he can do it in the Champions League remains to be seen. But if there's an agreement, I know it's not in paper between Mikey Johnson and Austin Trusty, but the two sides will be talking about that. You know, we sign your player, you sign our player. It's the way these financials work. They definitely will be in constant dialogue with these two players. I think both teams can come to an agreement for both players. They can announce them as separate players. They've got nothing to do with each other. But I do think that they'll be in cahoots with each other with those two signings.
Yeah, I'll need to look into Trusty, speak to someone who's watched them play and find out more. I guess you got to trust the recruitment team to some extent, although it's been difficult to do recently. For the record, I think Engels will come in. I think Trusty will come in. I'm less sure about Bogut's. Personally, just a hunch I get, not based off anything at all. I think I've got that niggling doubt that I just spoke about of us actually signing two centre mids for the guts of £20 million. So I think we might end up with like a Luke McCowan or someone like that. Someone was asking about the homegrown quota as well. Andrew was asking about the homegrown quota. So we need 8 players, don't we, for the Champions League. So just off the top of my head, we've got Forrest, McGregor, Ralston, Welsh, Taylor, who's not a Celtic one, Bain, who's not a Celtic one,
Montgomery.
Yeah, at a push. And is there an 8?
He'll probably be used as that, to be honest, because it doesn't look as if he's going out on loan anywhere.
Mikey Johnson
these things
will be
happen.
away, so he won't.
Totally.
I think if you're under 18, you can be on the list B. People go on about this homegrown quota as being like an absolute deal breaker, but if you don't have the 8 players, all that happens is your squad is reduced accordingly. So if you only have 7 homegrown players, your squad can only be 24 rather than 25, if you get me. So it's not the absolute end of the world, but Celtic seem to be quite keen on it. I'm not sure if there's an 8th player we can think of there, and even Montgomery's kind of pushing it a wee bit. But so that may be something to keep an eye on. The club might look at someone like Luke McCowan or, I don't know, Lennon Miller or someone like that, Joe.
I think I was thinking about this after the manager's press conference on Friday, ahead of last weekend. I was up there for the Herald, and you know, he said several weeks ago about nothing's coded, these are the conversations having the board, etc. And it was more of the same. And then we saw it again post-match as well, where, you know, he seemed confident and he was talking about his expectation and balancing his ambition and the frustration when Celtic don't sign players. I'm saying this with no knowledge. It's maybe just it's definitely just speculation on my part. I wonder how much Celtic will extend, you know, put the being cash rich to one side. Like, we have signed Adam Ida at 8.5 million. If they bring in Engels at 10 million, what are they both thinking for the next transfer window? Not so much January, but next summer. You know, if we go all out and spend a lot of money, that sets a precedent and an expectation among the fans, and not an unreasonable one, that we do the same next summer, that we do the same the summer after that. So I wonder how much slack Brendan Rodgers will be given in this window with a look at the future. That's more my thinking about whether, I know he wants 2 central midfielders in. Is he going to get 20 million worth of two central midfielders in this window, when one is probably enough for us to perform in domestic football and probably have a go at Champions League football this year, win the league, and then it starts again next summer. Maybe that's too negative a slant on it, but do you know what I mean? I'm just trying to think of the logistics of going from looking like not really spending at all in transfer windows to this one. You know, I know we've still got 3 days to go and we still need to get deals over the line, but this could be a really good one. But do you know, I don't know that we'll be given so much of a slack. Again, speculation on my part, but it didn't cross my mind.
Playing devil's advocate, why shouldn't we be? Like, we're still, I know we'll end up spending quite a lot of money, but I think we'll still be roughly, equal to the money we've brought in. When you look at, we've probably brought in, 35 million now? When you look at like and Haksabanovic and obviously O'Reilly and guys like that, and we'll probably spend about that. So, and you'd look at next summer and already you're looking ahead a bit, but you're thinking Hatate at that stage will probably move on, and if he has a great season, could maybe net as similar to the O'Reilly amount, and there might be other players in there. So maybe this is just what we need to do, Joe. Maybe just that Celtic.
Listen, I agree, and I think
build from here.
Yeah, and we've spoken before about the kind of looking at the Ajax model about bringing Matt O'Reilly in for 1.5, selling at 30 or 26 or whatever the deal ended up being, and then bringing in a player at 10 million. That's the way to do it, and I think Celtic should be doing that. And I think we as fans, I think we are right to expect it. I suppose I'm just trying to temper maybe just my own expectations against what we're used to. And I'm not saying what we're used to is good enough or what we should expect, but it's more I'm trying to juggle what to expect for the next 3 days. Not to avoid disappointment, but just trying to be realistic. Like, I think that I said this right at the very start of the transfer window. I'd love Celtic to open the checkbook and spend the money that we've got. It's just history would suggest that it's not likely. So what can we expect in the next few days? And yeah, maybe it is overly negative. I think we have every right. I agree with you that we should be looking at that, especially as we approach this new Champions League format. And yeah, I don't know. It does feel a bit defeatist that you're then thinking, oh, maybe we can't bring in too expensive central midfielders. But yeah, it's balancing history, expectation, and then being realistic as opposed to idealistic, I suppose.
Yeah. You talk about the money we've got in the club, and before you even get to the Champions League pot, that I think is worth something, including the ticket sales, could be worth something like £50 million, including ticket sales this season. Before you even get to that, we're balancing our books in terms of transfers. We're not spending more money on players than we're receiving by selling players. So, like the money there for me, and the tragedy for me, tragedy is a bit strong, but the fact that we haven't really spent this money regularly until now, and I'm well aware. I think Natalie was pointing out there we've only spent 13 million so far. I'm well aware of that. I think if Brendan Rodgers gets everyone he wants, we're going to be looking at about 35 million being spent in total by the end of this. I mean, the players we've been linked with are all relatively pricey. Even Trusty, I think they're talking 5 million. Ryan, but it needs to be done because the money is there. Hoarding this cash does not make any sense. You've got a fan base who are as engaged as I can remember the fan base being in. I mean, we've got 1,500 people on here at the moment watching us three idiots talk about it. That tells you something. People are engaged with Celtic. People are loving watching Celtic at the moment, but we're fed up not getting results in Europe. So the time is now to spend the money.
And see that engagement makes money as well for Celtic because they're going out and buying the free strips. They're going out and buying their Champions League packages, which will be a big price because there's 4 games, and with the way that the world is at the moment with inflation, etc. There is an interest now that I think there's a hunger from the Celtic fans that maybe even wasn't there last season, but it is here now. I think people have got totally behind Brendan Rodgers and what he's trying to do. They see a product on the park that is winning, attacking, attractive football to watch, that now people are counting down the days until when they're back at Celtic Park, when they're next watching a game on the TV, because they're excited about watching this team. The board and the people higher up in the club need to capitalise on that and bring in even more talent. Because if they do that and they go up to that level, if they push it to the next level, then they'll be willing to spend even more money on the team and everything around it. This is, the waiting list will get bigger for season tickets. More people will go on tours. More people will buy merchandise, whether that be kits or anything else that goes with the club. All of these things add up. Celtic are in a really positive moment. They need to capitalise on it. But by doing that and by bringing in new players, new talent, new heroes that they can merchandise as well, because look how quickly it took for Jota to be on T-shirts, Abada on T-shirts, Kyogo. That could easily be Engels or Boggets or any of the new players, or Ida and Bernardo. Get players like that, and people will buy merchandise off the back of that. There's a hunger. It's about time that Celtic, feed that hunger a wee bit and make the fans want more. Basically, everything is positive apart from the signings at the moment. Great to see Alex Valle, a Barcelona left back, coming through the door. If they could bring in 3 more, that's 4. They could bring in the 4 players before the end of the window and this week, then it really sets up a grandstand day on Sunday. You've got the Champions League on the Thursday. You've got the Glasgow Derby on Sunday. And then everybody's going into that game with optimism and, united on that united front. And it'll be some atmosphere on Sunday afternoon. I just think they've got potential here for it to be a really, really happy place. And a really good international break as well, because they'll have plenty to talk about, these new players coming through the door. It's exciting times. It's about time Celtic make that excitement happen.
Yeah, Ian saying if we get Engels and 1 or 2 more, then I'll be pretty happy. Yep. Jack saying, do you expect Palmer to move before the end of the week? Don't feel Rodgers rates him. Yeah, I'm not sure Rodgers rates him. Joe, what do you think about Palmer?
Yeah, I thought we would have saw more of him so far this season. Not really seen anything of him apart from kind of bit part performances. I don't know. Like, I was at the start of the transfer window, I was saying I wanted a big season from him and Kuhn, who said umpteen times how transformative he's been this season. He's just like a different player. And you're right, Ryan. Going back to the earlier point about a new player being cliche. He, having put on his weight and got over his trauma from his surgery, he practically is a new player in terms of finding his fitness and the way he started the season. I don't think he'll go out. I think he'll still remain. He's surely one of those players that you're looking to the Falkirk game thereafter, the League Cup games, and as the season gets into that run of games that we've always got in December, where it's absolutely hectic, assuming we're still in the League Cup at that stage as well, and hopefully it builds up to a final. It's always really hectic. So I think that the manager will be looking at that, plus the Champions League this side of the January window, and be keen to keep him here. But yeah, there is a kind of outside looking in, a little bit of a sense that maybe the manager's not that sure of him.
Yeah, I'm not sure of him either, so I get totally where Brendan Rodgers coming from. I'm surprised there's been no chat about Yang potentially moving out on loan.
I think his versatility will keep him there. The fact he can play on the left and the right, even if he's just an option for the last 10 minutes, or those cup games as you talk about, he can be a dangerous player. Blows very, very hot and cold. Very inconsistent player. But there's a reason why Celtic signed him, surely, and he's got something, and he must be doing it in training, because he's getting named on the subs bench. If he wasn't doing it in training, then he wouldn't be named in matchday squads, and he wouldn't be in and around the squad. So, I hope to be proven wrong. I think he's too inconsistent for my liking, but then again, so is Palmer. I think we'll look back on that transfer window in the summer. Look at the amount of players that aren't featured, and some of them aren't even at the club anymore. You look at Lagerbielke in particular. It was an utter failure of a transfer window. And with all the negativity, there's probably more positivity for the summer window than the January transfer window. But you look at the 2 players that were brought in January, and Nicholas Kuhn and Adam Ida. They're both first-team players. So it just goes to show you how things change once players are settled and players really show what they can do and that quality. But yeah, they've got until Friday really to really show that they mean business in this window. It could still turn out to be one of Celtic's best windows in recent memory if they get everything done. I know the timing hasn't been ideal, but look at the players individually that they've brought in. They'll have strengthened in every single area, or strengthened to the best of their abilities. It's difficult to replace Matt O'Reilly, I know that. But if they do that, I know the timing's been bad, but targeted signings in areas of quality, I don't think many people will complain, apart from the timing, obviously.
Yeah, of course. Blake bringing up the challenge in Matt O'Reilly last night is Brighton debut. I mean, I obviously hope it's not the case, but I imagine Matt O'Reilly was missing for a long period of time. It'd be a bit a kind of strange timing that could have happened while he was playing for Celtic, and things could have turned out very differently. Champions League draw tomorrow, guys. We'll maybe discuss that a bit tomorrow. I think there's 4 teams. 4 teams still to be confirmed in there. I noticed Bodo Glimt are up 2-1 from their first leg, so they could be in the Champions League. I don't fancy a trip to Bodo Glimt, I must say.
The big fish.
I'd fancy them at home if they are in it. But that's one of the things about this new format. But it's an exciting few days. As I say, we'll discuss that tomorrow when we've got the full list of 36 teams. Okay, we'll head off for now. Thanks once again, guys, for coming on and chatting about the latest transfers. Alex Valle is in the door, but there's plenty more work for Celtic to do over the next 3 and a bit days. 2 and a bit days.
2 and a bit. 2.5.
2 and a bit days. Dear oh dear. Right, okay, we'll chat to you tomorrow.